Welcome to another episode of The Second Coming. I'm here with Brother T. I'm your host, Jason Keeton. We love having you here. So we have a good question from a viewer, and it's right to the point. So in a second, I'm going to get to that. But first, I want to tell you that we really appreciate and need you to be active in this community. So write questions. I'll take the questions. I would love to pose them to Brother T. Be part of this community. You can support us, support.truethought.org. We're on Facebook and Substack. Like, share, subscribe. We would love to share the love with everybody you know, even just one person. Thanks. How you doing, Brother T?
I'm doing great, man. Glad to be back on this 51st episode of The Second Coming, and our next episode will be our anniversary episode. I'm kind of excited about that. And we are closing in on our 5th anniversary of True Thought Spiritual Community. We were founded on July 1st of 2020, and it's been a very exciting 5 years. You know, we've gone through a lot of transition, but, you know, we're just bumping along. We see some great things for our community going forward, and I'm just thrilled and glad to be doing my part here, what I can do to support the community, you know, from a spiritual perspective, conversationally. And I gotta say, Jason, it's been a lot of fun working with you this past year, and we'll talk a little bit more about that maybe in our next episode. But today, I'm feeling fantastic, man. Got some good sleep last night. I'm rested up, been playing some pickleball this week and some volleyball this week.
Nice.
You know, getting some workouts in at the gym, just trying to take care of my body and eat right and work out and stay young as long as I can. And I feel blessed by the Holy Spirit guidance that I'm receiving to stay focused on our ministry and what's happening here at True Thought.
I love that. Well, today the question comes from David, and David asks a pretty straightforward spiritual question, but it's way deeper when you dive into it. And his question is, who am I?
Oh, I love that one. That's a good one. We'll jump right into it. That's a very basic question. So thank you, David, for your question, my friend. And if we're answering your questions and you're giving those questions to us through, True Mind or truethought.org or truemind.space, you can add comments on our Substack page, and you can also join us on our YouTube channel is TTSC, True Thought Spiritual Community, so TTSC.TV. And you can add comments and questions there, always on our YouTube channel. So anyway, with that being said, let's call in some counsel. Let's take a good deep breath. I know who I am in truth. I know what I am in truth. I know how I serve in truth. I am free, I am free, I am free. I am here. I am in the upper room. I have come, I have come, I have come. Behold, I make all things new. It will be so. God is, God is, God is. So I say thank you, thank you, thank you to the guidance and the Spirit that is joining with us today as the room fills in today with our guides, our angels, our family, the masters, and those who are intent on helping humanity evolve into the second coming of heaven on earth. What an exciting time. So the question is, who am I? Did I get that right?
That's what it is.
Well, that's the basic question that the ego never wants you to ask. So great for having the integrity and the courage to ask that question, David. The ego doesn't want you to ever ask that question. Because if you discover who you are, you will most likely begin to abandon your egoic thinking personality self. So I'll back up a little bit to give a little structure to the conversation. We are souls. We are extensions of God. We are micro droplets of the super souls and of God itself. Micro droplets that come into form here with purpose to create more of God. So you are an extension, an individuated extension, as are all of your brothers and sisters, as an expression of God. And when we come into form as an expression in form, our purpose is to be the expression of God in form. So that was what Jesus did. Jesus said, when you see me, you see the Father. And he was given the name Christ, right? Now the Christ is more of a title than a name, because what that title or what that name expresses is God in form. And Jesus was absolutely not the first or the last expression of Christ in form. He was saying, I am the expression of love in form. And he also is quoted as saying in the Bible, even the least among you will do more than I, which I think is an interesting saying, because we're all equal. There is really no lesser or higher. There are those who are more, I'm going to say, evolved. Jesus clearly was more evolved than I am. I use myself as an example. But that doesn't mean that I can't attain that same level of evolution, in fact, or ascension. In fact, that's what I am doing, and that's what we are all doing. We are here to be as Christ. Now, that doesn't make you God. That makes you, the essence of you is God. You are a soul that is an extension of God. And the soul, as we had discussed in our last episode, Jason, has free will, right? And the soul is learning through the personality self. But the construct, if you will, of how we go through this evolution and this ascension process is that we begin in form with a default operating system. And we call that default operating system the ego. Now, the ego is like an operating system on a computer. It's basically running a default operating parameters, and the foundation of those parameters to keep the body alive and to help you survive. When we first come into this existence, is the personality self is founded on fear, right? And judgment, because it needs to make decisions for its survival. And we all do that, right? We begin and look at ourselves eventually to grow up and separate ourselves from our parents or our families to be, an independent authority making our own decisions. It takes us about 25, 26 years for our mind to actually fully develop. And it takes decades for us to raise our children so that they can make their own decisions through the right judgments, etc. The problem with the default operating system is it's not really who you are. But the default operating system develops a personality, quote unquote, I'm using air quotes, and that personality self, its foundational, its thinking construct is fear and judgment and separation, right? It believes that it's separate from everything, and so it's always making decisions and thinking through the process of protecting itself, protecting the body. It believes itself is a body. We believe we are bodies, that we're contained within a body, et cetera, et cetera. That's the default operating system. And at some point as we mature, over many, many lifetimes, I don't believe it's possible for any one lifetime for us to figure this out, so to speak. We transcend through the help of our I'm going to say our teachers like Jesus, Buddha, Muhammad and others that were ascended masters, came into form at a highest level of consciousness available in body and form, that we can then let go of the belief system and the constructs of fear of the egoic personality self, and we let that go. And then what we develop and start expressing as is our true self. Now, I can best describe your true self as the voice of certainty. It's also been defined as true mind. It's also been defined as the voice for God. It's also expressing in unity the thoughts of God, which are always thoughts and expressions and extensions of love. And those thoughts, God's thoughts, are perfect thoughts. We're neither behind the point of perfection nor advancing toward it. And our true, capital T, self, capital S, our true self is who we are. It is who I am. I am the true self. I am that I am. And in the higher consciousness realm of the upper room, we like to use that language here at True Thought. Once I attain that level of consciousness, it doesn't mean that my ego is gone forever and ever. No, my ego is still an aspect of myself, just like I could label a few aspects or identify a few aspects of your egoic mind. I could talk about the skeptic. Maybe what I'm sharing with you, the skeptic is rising and saying, oh, I don't believe any of that. That's not true. That can't be possible. That's your skeptic aspect, right? And then there's the controller. The controller might say, you know what, I agree with the skeptic. We're going to turn this off right now. We're not going to listen to another word. We're going to change the dial. So we like to be in control, the ego, right? It loves to be in control. In fact, that's its primary purpose. It believes itself to be the controller of all things. And it controls other people as much as possible so that it feels safe, because its operating system is fear, and it wants to protect itself from everything and all things, especially its brothers and sisters, and future events that don't exist. All those things are aspects of the ego construct, right? Well, the true self is an aspect of God. You are an extension of God. That is who you are. So when we say, I know who I am in truth, I am perfect, neither behind the point of perfection nor advancing toward it. And I can see myself therefrom by evolving consciously through the practice of spiritual work. Jesus has been teaching us now for 60 years, right? Starting with Helen Schachtman primarily. I'm talking in a big way. Things before that were happening, absolutely were happening, but in the last 60 years, the evolution of humanity has gone through a drastic change, and even our planet has gone through a huge vibrational change based on consciousness of humanity. And so it began with A Course in Miracles. And this began in 1965 when Helen Schachtman began transcribing the voice of Jesus. And this went on for about 7 years, eventually was published around 1975. Since then, we've had the channeling from Jesus of the Way of Mastery. This was Mark, I'm trying to think of his last name, but he goes by JM. And you can find this, thewayofmastery.org. I would suggest looking some of that up. And now this is kind of an intermediary, if you will, communication from Jesus from the first miracle book. And then the second miracle book was called A Course of Love. I've been reading that a lot these past few weeks, going back over it again. I just love that book as well. So this is kind of taking things to the next level. And I call these books the graduate study of spirituality. There's lots of things that have come before these things: astrology, numerology. You can go to a New Thought or New Age bookstore or store and find all kinds of things that you can learn through. But I'm telling you that this new teaching now, what's coming now, is the cleanest and purest form of teaching that the world has ever known. Other than what Jesus was sharing with his disciples 2,000 years ago, which a lot of that was shifted and changed and erased and modified by the power structures of the ego, wanting to stay in control. I'm talking about the church and state of the time, the Roman Empire, if you will, as an example. And so you are as God created you to be. You are what God created you to be. And you will read that again and again in A Course of Miracles, right? And what he's referring to there is you are true self, your actual identity. But that self will not express as you and through you until you overcome through the help of your soul, which is learning through your human experience process, who and what it is. Its own identity is becoming, it's revealing, it's beginning to understand and grow through the ego's experiences. And it's kind of like a description that was given to us by Melchizedek, which is the channelings of Paul Selig. It's a group of souls, if you will, I think about 2,500 or so, that identify themselves as Melchizedek. Melchizedek, I think you'll find him in the Old Testament. He was a king of Salem, I believe, and a mentor to Abraham. This goes way back, right? Anyway, I think the 12 books have already been published since 2009, right? And then most recently, from Jesus, is a series of books called A Journey into the Unknown. And that's a little bit more abstract, if you will, and a little harder to find for some people, but the preliminary work that anyone can take on right now, if you're new to spirituality, I would highly recommend just begin with The Way of Mastery. Mark Hammer is the man's name. It just came to me. And there are 3 books in one that you can find out there on the internet, on YouTube. The whole process of being here is to actually discover and begin to express who you truly are. So through the work of Paul Selig, right, and Melchizedek, the attunements that they do that we share here at True Thought and use them continuously throughout the day is I know who I am in truth. I know what I am in truth. I know how I serve in truth, right? So I am what God created me to be, an extension of love, right? The what that I am is the extension of love in form, right? And how I serve is to be that extension in form and to transition from my egoic identity to my true mind identity. I know who I am in truth. And we begin that with the word in the Bible. In the beginning was the word. And Melchizedek has helped us to understand that the word, the definition is, it is the energy of the Creator in action, right? The energy of the Creator in action is who you are, the what that you are when you are doing it in form. So I'll see if Jason has any comments or questions based on this short description. And we covered a lot of ground here, Jason, and I know a little of it's kind of dense, but I hope David is tracking here what we're saying.
Yeah, and I love that you gave people that are just starting out almost like a roadmap or certainly tools of, where they can go to read or to listen. Actually, A Way of Mastery, I've listened to it several times on YouTube. And if you just go Way of Mastery on YouTube, each chapter is about 20, 25 minutes and a very good narrative voice on whoever is narrating those. It's a beautiful way to ease yourself, into this spiritual journey. And I think something, maybe it was yourself, Brother T, that says, once your eyes are opened to this spiritual path, you can't close them. I mean, you can look away, but it's a beautiful path. And what are some of your personal, if it's affirmations or meditations, what's something that you do daily to kind of keep yourself in this space or this vibration of love?
Good question. I keep going back to my. I'm kind of right now finding the work from Paul Selig as kind of my go-to books for 2024. I think I've read 6 or 7 of those since the beginning of the year. I'm also going back and reading right now. I kind of like to read 2 or 3 books at the same time. I'm reading the Course of Love again. I just started that last week again. I think I've been reading it for about 2 weeks now. Yeah, that's some good stuff. But each time we, it's like taking a step out on a ladder, Jason. I can read the very first book by Paul Selig is Word, I Am Word. Right? Now this book it's very practical. And I've read that book at least a dozen times, probably more. Because each time I go back and read it, I'm seeing where all the other books he was eventually going to share with us, were pointed to. But it's just a very practical beginning. Just like the Way of Mastery is a very practical beginning of a spiritual pathway, so is Word, I Am the Word, Paul Selig, S-E-L-I-G. Paul Selig's books will take you, unless you're deeply steeped in a belief system, a conditioned Christian belief system. If that's your starting point, and you have some things to let go of, you have some beliefs to release. A spiritual pathway eventually challenges almost every belief you have. I'll tell you that right now, because our beliefs from the world are very conditioned, and from Christianity are very conditioned, and whatever other organized institutional religions that are out there, they're extremely religion. What we're talking about is spirituality. It is not religion. Spirituality is about consciousness. It's not about a set of laws and dogmas. I've been sharing for the last about a month and a half. We're closing in on the end of it now. The spiritual principles, I think we're already past that. The spiritual principles of A Journey into the Unknown, right? Book 2. This is 45 principles, and you can find those on our Substack page. Just go to Journey Notes, and you'll see all of the spiritual principles. I've been sending those out. I had sent those out every day, one a day, and there were 45 principles in there. And of course, in Miracles, the original, your text version, there were 53 principles of A Course in Miracles in the first chapter. So depending on your indoctrination into the world, your egoic, fearful belief system could be fundamentally very Christian. And if it is, A Course in Miracles could be your starting point, right? Could be a good starting point. But if you don't have that kind of a heavy Christian indoctrination, like me, I left the church when I was 15 years old because I couldn't reconcile that God didn't love me as much as my grandmother did. I said, I can't handle this. I'm going to step away. I don't think that's because of this lifetime. I think in former lifetimes, I had pretty much already transcended the traditional Christian dogma of a jealous, vengeful, wrathful God. Those are God made up in the egoic mind construct. That's not God. God is none of those things. And sometimes when I hear people say, "Oh, I'm a God-fearing," but I'm like, well, then you're missing out on God, because God is not fear at all, right? But if you don't have those kind of trainings and conditioning, Word, I Am Word by Paul Selig and the guides, man, that's because here, and some of my nieces and nephews actually, I've started them there, those that ask. I don't go around proselytizing, but those that ask me, I share that with them, because they're really talking about approaching the spiritual advancement, conscious advancement and ascension from a perspective of vibration, right? That everything is vibration. Everything around you right now is in stasis. It cannot be in stasis. In other words, everything's moving. Everything is energy. Everything is vibration. Everything is sound. So sound is vibration. Light is vibration. Energy is vibration. You are vibration. Everything is in vibration and movement. And love itself, the energy of love, is a vibration. So I love this language and how that helps me understand my own personal journey by combining all of these things. And I've been reading and studying this now, starting with Buddhism, about 30 years ago. This is not a short, it's not something you're going to get through in a weekend or even a year. You got to be patient with yourself, because you have a lot of beliefs that you'll have to eventually release.
And that's one beautiful thing about the second coming, no one to crucify. This isn't a religion. This is your guide, Brother T. You're our guide to this path of awakening, opening our eyes, feeling and living in the vibration of love. And thank you so much, Brother T.
Oh, it is my purpose. This is my purpose. This is what I came for. I came here to learn, and then once you learn, it's the teacher. Jesus tells us in the Course in Miracles, Jason said, the teacher is a learner, right? So I want to learn as much as I can, right, from Jesus and other guides, because they're all teaching the same journey. They're teaching the same process of ascension. It's the story of the prodigal son in the Bible, returning to God. It's returning to self-love. It's returning to being able to see God in everything and all things that you experience. Just a few episodes ago, you were talking about one day, remember you were talking about you love your camera, and then you said, oh, but I don't want to say I love him. No, everything is God. So love your cameraman.
Yeah.
Love your brothers and sisters. Love the light, right? Love the chair. Love your car.
Yeah.
Love everything, because everything is God expressing in form at different levels of frequency, vibration, and at some point those things will change, and it'll be expressing as something else.
I love that. And this was a great way. Thanks again, David, for the question, who am I? And we've given you tools, we've given you some explanation, and you've helped all of us dive into that question. And sometimes I think if you just sit and ask, who am I? And silence your mind. It's a beautiful way to get in touch and put the ego behind you. And Brother T, thanks for your love today. And
so I want to share with David that David, one of the first obstacles that I overcame was my conditioning that you only have one life. Golly, I can barely figure out how to make a living in one lifetime, much less, my journey of ascension. So at some point I began to accept, through my study of Buddhism, that was, the aha moment for me, as I began to accept that reincarnation is possible. And not only is it possible, reincarnation is, right? And that I've had many, 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 many hundreds of lifetimes. And once I accepted that, right, my belief system changed. And once I accepted that, the question I was asking, because you were saying, Jason, just meditate on the question, who am I? I accepted that I was reincarnating. The question that sprang into my mind is, well, shit, how do I get off the planet? If I'm reincarnating and I've done it for hundreds of times, I want to know how to get off the planet. Obviously, there's a graduation process. Jesus graduated, right? Jesus graduated. And if he did it, he was saying, everyone can do it. Even the least among you can do it. I'm like, I'm raising my hand on that deal. How do you get out? I don't want to go back to the first grade again. I don't want to start all over again. I want to go to the next journey beyond form. What awaits me? What did Jesus discover? Right?
That's beautiful.
That was the question. And once that sprang into my mind, I became literally continuously obsessed with, like when I would quieten my mind and meditate, how do I get off the planet? How do I get off? And that's when A Course in Miracles came into my experience, right? And this was Jesus' most profound teaching initially. The others, I think, are taking it to a whole different level. But The Course in Miracles served a great purpose for me, because I had, even though it was only a short period in my life, I still had an indoctrination into Christian theology and dogma. And I needed to overcome it, and Jesus helped me do that through A Course in Miracles. So whatever the question may be, and then when we get to a certain point, the reason I wanted to share that little story with you, David, and Jason, for your purposes, is that when we get to a certain point, we have to begin to speak as our true self. In other words, if we're just going to keep being the ego and operating from the ego, we're not going to get away from it. So when we say, I know who I am, not who am I, I'm giving it meaning now. I'm saying, I know who I am in truth. Who am I? I am as God created me to be. I am God's perfect child. I'm an extension of love in form. Now I'm giving claim to my true identity, and I'm beginning to resonate with that vibration. Do you see the difference?
Absolutely.
Right? So instead of just asking the question, who am I, and let your ego fill in the blank for you, because it will. I guarantee you it will. It did for me for a long time. Because what I was defining was who I've decided I am. My ego has decided I am this or I'm that. I am this person that's doing this because I'm in the Navy and I'm a sailor. I know who I am. I'm a sailor. And later I'm in business. I'm a mechanic. Oh, I'm a mechanic. I know who. No, none of those things are those are who I've made up that I am. And if you just ask that question, who am I? The ego will fill it in for you, right? So once you learn the truth of who you are, wow, things really start changing. And so now you can begin to say and give expression to the truth of who you are. And what you're doing is opening up this channel. And eventually, I'm getting my hair standing on edge. Eventually, you are giving voice and becoming the expression of that self. I know who I am in truth. I am Christ. Did he say that? Did he say that? Yes, I'm saying it. I am Christ. There's an aspect of me that is boldly no longer afraid to say, I am Christ. I know who I am in truth. Behold, I make all things new. Do you feel that energy?
Yeah.
I do. I feel it immediately because I'm giving expression to truth and the vibration just shifts dramatically.
Thank you, Brother T. Thank you. So next week is episode 52. Woo. 1 full year of weekly podcasts. I don't think we've missed any weeks. I think we've hit them every week. No,
we didn't miss any weeks. We haven't missed any weeks, and I haven't missed any fun either. It's been a glorious year, but I think I'm just making predictions because the thinking mind just predicts the future, and it doesn't know anything at all. So I'm throwing a wild card out there. Just throw it up in the air and see how it lands. Yeah. But I think maybe our audience will start to see and be courageous enough to start asking you more questions, Jason, that you can share with me.
Absolutely.
I think this is so much fun. And so I want to say thank you, David. And last week, I want to say thank you to Colleen one more time. Yeah. But I want to say thank you to anyone that has the courage, right, to ask questions and to consider, looking at their belief system in earnest, because it's hard work. And our belief systems are something that a belief is an idea that we just keep thinking over and over, but the world is reflective. And so the world the reason people don't want to change their belief is because they've got proof. Well, of course they got proof. The world reflects what you think.
Right.
So this is not easy, and it's not done overnight. But I've just had a lot of fun today. I'm having so much fun today with these questions from people that I don't know, but I feel like I do know. So because I've been there. I've been where David is. Who am I? That was a big question for me. But my ego answered that question for a long, long time before I asked the question, okay, how do I get off the planet?
Yeah. This is, it's been an amazing journey. And for any of you that are new or how this works is, so I'll go on and I'll read the questions from YouTube. And if there isn't a question that week, I have to come up with it on my own. And I pose it to Tony, and that's what he's doing when he's kind of sitting there and taking the breath in. He's kind of channeling the higher ascended masters to give us this enlightenment and help us on our path. So thank you, Brother T, for an amazing 51 weeks. I'm looking forward to our big celebration of 52 next week. So, but I'm fully being present and enjoying this one just as much. So thank you, Brother T.
As am I.
And thank all of you for being part of this community on another episode of The Second Coming. No one to crucify.
It will be so. Amen.
Amen.